why it would suck to wake up as a Tyranid. Welcome back to Imperial Scholar Mops. If you love exploring the most terrifying corners of Warhammer 40,000 lore, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what Grimdark projects you're working on, or which factions you'd love us to dissect next. Your ideas keep this channel alive, like biomass keeps the hive fleets moving. Now, imagine waking up, your eyes open, or rather, the multifaceted orbs embedded in the chitinous shell that is now your skull. You don't blink because you have no eyelids. Your vision fractures reality into countless mirrored shards. You try to breathe, but there are no lungs in the way you remember. Instead, you draw in air through spiracles that hiss softly, filtering chemicals and pheromones. Your limbs feel wrong. Your skin is gone, replaced by a rigid exoskeleton covered in barbed ridges and glossy plates of bioarmor. Flexing your claws, you see talons dripping with glistening venom. And above it all, pulsing in your skull, you feel it. A presence vaster than worlds, an ocean of cold intellect pressing into every thought. You're a single cell in a galaxy-spanning organism. Your thoughts are not your own. Your instincts are not your own. Everything you were has been swallowed by something so alien it doesn't even know what you means. Congratulations. You've woken up as a Tyranid, and your entire purpose is to consume everything. Let's talk about why that's the worst fate in the galaxy. But first, to understand the horror of becoming a Tyranid, we need to talk about where the Tyranids come from, because they are not just another alien race. They are something entirely different. A cosmic extinction event made of flesh and claws. The Tyranids hail from beyond the known galaxy, not just from another sector, not just from a distant spiral arm, from outside the entire Milky Way. They are extragalactic invaders, driven by a biological imperative that defies every concept of life we know. We have only fragments of records about their arrival. The earliest Imperial contacts with the Tyranids happened in the outer reaches of the Eastern Fringe. At first, they were isolated incidents, missing ships, silent colonies, strange biosignatures on auspexes. Rogue traders whispered of monstrous creatures drifting in living ships, worlds stripped of all life, even the atmosphere devoured. But these were just scout tendrils. Probes sent by something far greater. Then came Hive Fleet Behemoth. Behemoth tore into the galaxy like a blade, striking Ultramar and smashing through planetary defenses that had stood for millennia. Entire planets were consumed, their biomass sucked dry and converted into more Tyranid organisms. The Imperium's first true understanding of what it faced came during the First Tyrannic War. The Tyranids were not raiders, not conquerors. They were harvesters, stripping every ecosystem down to its base chemical components and moving on. Space Marines, Imperial Navy, Titan Legions. It wasn't enough. Behemoth was only stopped at Macragge, and even then, the Ultramarines lost nearly their entire first company defending their fortress monastery. But Behemoth was just the beginning. Next came Hive Fleet Kraken. Unlike Behemoth's frontal assault, Kraken divided itself into countless smaller splinters, probing weaknesses across thousands of light years. Entire sectors fell silent. Hive worlds vanished. Kraken moved like a knife, quick and surgical, devouring biospheres before the Imperium could respond. Kraken was only defeated through catastrophic sacrifices, including exterminatus-level scorched earth tactics. Yet even as Imperial forces celebrated, fragments of Kraken scattered into the void, ready to evolve into new horrors. And then there was Hive Fleet Leviathan. Leviathan emerged from an unexpected direction, from beneath the galactic plane, rising from the dark void under the galaxy like a monstrous tidal wave. Its tendrils punched deep into Imperial space, attacking from two sides simultaneously. Leviathan adapted faster than anything humanity had ever faced. Imperial commanders discovered that weapons and strategies effective one week were useless the next. Entire Imperial battle plans fell apart as Leviathan developed new bioforms designed specifically to counter Imperial tactics. Fortresses were bypassed, star systems isolated and devoured. The Tyranids don't just attack blindly, they learn. Every battle is an experiment. Every victory and every defeat teaches the hive mind how to adapt, evolve, and strike again. And that's the true terror. The Tyranids are not a species. They are a superorganism, millions of creatures, but all connected to a single mind of staggering intelligence. When you fight one Tyranid swarm, you're fighting a fragment of something so vast it stretches across hundreds of light years. But where did the Tyranids come from before they reached our galaxy? No one knows for certain. Some Imperial savants speculate they were fleeing something worse from their own galaxy. Others believe they evolved naturally as apex predators, consuming one galaxy after another in a cosmic migration that has lasted millions of years. There's even a theory that the Tyranids were bioengineered by an ancient race, perhaps the Old Ones or another long-lost species, as a weapon that spiraled out of control. But the truth is, it doesn't matter, because now they're here, and they see our galaxy as nothing more than their next meal. The Imperium of Man, the Eldar, the Orcs, the Tau. To the Tyranids, these civilizations are just sources of biomass. Buildings, animals, plants, oceans, air, all destined to be digested, broken down, and reconstituted into new Tyranid life forms. Their arrival has fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. For the first time, every faction faces a threat that can't be negotiated with, reasoned with, or bribed. The Tyranids don't want territory. They don't want political power. They just want to consume. They strip planets of all life. They drain oceans. They suck away atmospheres. Even the soil itself is processed into nutrient sludge for future bioforms. After the Tyranids pass through, a world is left a barren husk, lifeless rock orbiting a sun. And the worst part? The hive fleets we've seen so far might be nothing compared to the true scale of the Tyranid threat. Some Imperial savants believe Behemoth, Kraken, and Leviathan are mere scout tendrils, small fragments testing our galaxy's defenses. If that's true, the main body of the Tyranid swarms still waits beyond the void, and the galaxy is only experiencing the first ripples of a cosmic tidal wave. This is why even the coldest strategists in the Imperium lie awake at night, because the Tyranids are inevitable. They don't care who you worship. They don't care about your technology. They don't care about your heroism. They exist to feed. And if the Great Devourer arrives in force, there may be no defense strong enough to stop them. So if you wake up as a Tyranid, remember, you are part of a nightmare older than humanity itself. You are a cell in a cosmic predator that has crossed the stars for purposes no human mind can truly comprehend. And that's just the beginning. Let's talk about the body you'd wake up in if you suddenly became a Tyranid. Because this isn't simply a case of growing a few extra limbs or some fancy claws. Waking up as a Tyranid means becoming part of the most perfectly honed killing machine the galaxy has ever produced. A creature whose biology has been optimized through countless eons of evolution, genetic engineering, and ruthless natural selection. The Tyranids are the ultimate expression of biological weaponry. They are living tools, custom designed for war, survival, and, above all, consumption. Every cell in your new body serves a purpose. Every organ is specialized, and none of it belongs to you in any meaningful sense. Let's start with the basics. If you wake up as one of the smaller Tyranid organisms, say a Hormigaunt or Termagant, your body would be lightweight, compact, and hyper-efficient. You'd be roughly the size of a large man, but built low to the ground with a sleek, predatory profile. Your chitinous exoskeleton would be tough enough to deflect small-caliber rounds, yet flexible enough to let you scuttle at terrifying speed. Your limbs would be elongated, ending in razor-sharp claws. Your muscles would coil like springs, able to propel you forward in sudden leaps. Your metabolism would burn hot, giving you short bursts of explosive energy. But that also means constant hunger. You'd exist in a perpetual state of biological urgency, always either hunting or feeding. But that's just one variant. Because the Tyranids come in an astonishing array of biomorphs, each specialized for a precise battlefield role. Consider waking up as a Tyranid warrior.
Now you're bigger.
Easily over 3 meters tall, heavily muscled, layered in thicker carapace plates. Your mind is more complex, capable of acting as a synapse node to coordinate lesser creatures. You might wield bioweapons fused to your arms, bone swords, venom cannons, death spitters. Your jaws are lined with serrated fangs. Your senses are hyper-acute, tuned to pick up the subtlest vibrations in the air. Or perhaps you'd wake up as a Carnifex. Imagine being over 10 meters long, a walking siege engine whose every footfall shakes the ground. Your hide is a slab of overlapping armor plates thicker than tank armor. Your head is a monstrous wedge of bone and spines, with a jaw powerful enough to bite through ceramite. Your forelimbs end in scything talons the length of scimitars. Acid drips from your teeth. As a Carnifex, you're not just a creature. You're a living battering ram designed to breach fortress walls, crush armored vehicles, and cause pure panic. Your charge can shatter defense lines. Your bellowing roar is calibrated to disrupt enemy morale. Then there's the possibility of waking up as a hive tyrant. This is the closest thing the Tyranids have to an individual leader, although that term is deceptive. A hive tyrant is a towering behemoth, sometimes over 5 meters tall, bristling with psychic power and armored in bioplating so dense that las cannons might only scorch the surface. A hive tyrant has wings that can carry it across the battlefield in sweeping dives. Or it might be purely terrestrial, stomping forward like a walking cathedral of bone and sinew. Its weapons are biocannons fused into its arms, or pairs of massive bone swords crackling with bioelectric energy. Its mind blazes with a fraction of the hive mind's consciousness, making it capable of complex tactics, psychic assaults, and battlefield coordination. But no matter which bioform you inhabit, one thing unites them all: you are not yourself. There is no you. Your consciousness, if it can even be called that, is a thin sliver of perception dangling like a puppet string from the vast intelligence of the hive mind. Your thoughts are not your own. Your instincts are not your own. Everything you sense is filtered through a neural network designed for one purpose: perfect obedience. You might feel hunger. You might feel aggression. But these are not emotions in the human sense. They're directives, biological imperatives hard-coded into your nervous system. Consider how your senses would work. A Tyranid perceives the world through a complex cocktail of inputs, pheromones released by other creatures, carrying instructions or status updates. Vibration sensors in your carapace, picking up the faintest footsteps miles away. Chemical analyzers in your tongue and antennae, sampling the air for toxins, prey signatures, or enemy presence. Electroreceptors that detect bioelectric fields, allowing you to sense living beings even through walls. Your vision might range into ultraviolet or infrared. You might see in ways that don't involve sight at all, mapping your environment through neural resonance echoes from the synapse network. And all of this happens without conscious thought. You don't decide to attack. The hive mind commands, and your body reacts. If the hive mind says charge, you charge. If it says fall back, you fall back. You're not afraid, you're not brave. You're simply obedient. Even your physiology is modular. If the hive mind detects a threat that current bioforms can't handle, it evolves new organisms within a few generations. Bioweapons change. Exoskeletons thicken. New toxins appear in your venom sacs. You are a product, constantly tweaked for maximum efficiency. It's not even unusual for entire bioforms to be reabsorbed into biomass if they're no longer useful. You might wake up one day as a brand new, highly specialized creature, only to be dissolved back into digestive pools because the hive mind has decided your genetic material is better spent elsewhere. There is no afterlife for a Tyranid, no reward, no legacy. Your memories don't persist. You live, fight, consume, and then return to the genetic soup. Read. Let's talk about society. Let's talk about society and hierarchy. Although, even that term is misleading when it comes to the Tyranids. The Tyranids don't have a society in any conventional sense. They have no culture, no art, no individuality. There is no conversation, no storytelling, no leisure. There is only the hive mind. The hive mind is an entity so vast it's difficult to describe. Imagine a psychic field stretching across entire sectors of space, an invisible ocean of thought that saturates everything within its reach. When Tyranids gather in sufficient numbers, their combined psychic presence coalesces into a single awareness. This is not merely a telepathic network, it's a singular intelligence. A conscious entity that thinks, plans, calculates, and adapts. Each Tyranid creature is a cell in its body. A gaunt scuttling forward on a battlefield is as much part of the hive mind as a neuron firing in your brain. And the hive mind is terrifyingly intelligent. It doesn't simply hurl waves of beasts at the enemy. It observes. It analyzes weaknesses. It tests defenses. It feints, withdraws, reforms, and attacks from new directions. It can coordinate billions of organisms in perfect unison, adjusting tactics on a second-by-second basis. Within this colossal intelligence exists a hierarchy of synapse creatures. At the top are beings like the Norn Queens. These are vast bioengineering organisms hidden deep within the bioships. The Norn Queens are not commanders in a military sense. They are biological factories. They manage genetic libraries, design new bioforms, and oversee the production of creatures suited for each planet the hive fleets invade. A Norn Queen is enormous, effectively fused into the ship's flesh, surrounded by vats of nutrient sludge and rivers of genetic material. Her tendrils constantly manipulate DNA strands, adjusting genomes in real time. She births new organisms, spawns eggs, and recycles biomass into future waves of Tyranid life. Beneath the Norn, queens are the hive tyrants and other synapse creatures like Tyranid warriors, zoanthropes, and neurothropes. These entities act as nodes in the hive mind's network. They carry a larger fragment of its consciousness, enabling them to command lesser bioforms even when isolated from the main swarm. For example, if a swarm tendril is cut off by warp storms, the local hive tyrant assumes direct tactical command, using its portion of the hive mind's intelligence to continue the mission. But make no mistake, the hive tyrant is not an individual. It's the hive mind operating through a specialized biological terminal. Lesser creatures like gaunts, rippers, and gargoyles have almost no independent thought. They operate entirely on instinct, unless under direct control of a synapse creature. Remove the synapse network, and these organisms often fall into mindless confusion. They might freeze, mill around aimlessly, or retreat in random directions. This is known as synapse collapse, one of the few exploitable weaknesses in Tyranid warfare. Yet even this is not a true vulnerability, because the hive mind learns, it adapts. It has developed bioforms specifically designed to re-establish synapse control when previous commanders fall. Everything in the Tyranid hierarchy exists for a purpose. Rippers devour corpses and recycle biomass. Gaunts form the expendable wave assaults. Warriors and hive tyrants coordinate battle plans. Carnifexes shatter fortifications. Lictors scout ahead and assassinate key targets. Each creature is a tool, perfectly fitted into the larger puzzle. There is no individuality, no personal ambition, no dissent. If the hive mind decides your biomass is better used elsewhere, it will dissolve you without hesitation. Your consciousness flickers out, and your proteins become the building blocks for something new. And that's what makes waking up as a Tyranid so horrifying. Because you wouldn't just lose your humanity, you'd lose the very concept of self. Now let's talk about technology and warfare, or rather, why those words don't quite apply when it comes to the Tyranids. Because if you wake up as a Tyranid, you won't be wielding guns forged in a manufactorum or piloting a tank built in an assembly line. Your weapons, your armor, your very body, it's all grown. Tyranids do not build technology, they grow it. Every aspect of Tyranid warfare is biological. Weapons, ships, armor, fortifications, they're living organisms, carefully sculpted to perform precise battlefield functions. And this makes the Tyranids fundamentally alien to any other race in the galaxy. Take weapons, for instance. If you wake up as a Tyranid warrior equipped with a flesh borer, you'll realize you're holding not a gun, but a living creature. A flesh borer is an organic symbiote, a bioform bred to latch onto your forelimb with fleshy sacs containing beetle-like projectiles. When you fire, the gun contracts powerful muscle fibers, launching razor-shelled grubs encased in acidic slime. Upon impact, these beetles burrow into flesh, chewing through muscle and bone before exploding. Or consider the Devourer, another symbiotic weapon. It fires a swarm of tiny, hyper-aggressive organisms resembling insects. Once launched, these creatures rip into enemy ranks, clawing and biting, spreading toxins as they die. Then there are venom cannons, grown to spit globules of corrosive toxins. Their barrel is a living esophagus, lined with muscular rings that contract to propel viscous acid globules at supersonic speed. The barbed strangler weapon fires seed pods laced with coiling vines. On impact, the vines burst forth, wrapping around anything nearby, crushing bones and suffocating prey and strangling tendrils. Even Tyranid melee weapons are biological extensions. A scything talon is not merely a blade, but a limb grown from hardened bone, layered in keratin and edged with molecular sharpness. A bone sword is infused with alien bioelectric fields, disrupting enemy armor and nervous systems alike. And if you're unlucky enough to wake up as a massive bio-creature like a Carnifex, your entire body is a weapon. Massive bioplasma organs gather chemical energy until it detonates outward in a screaming blast of superheated matter. Or you might simply rely on brute force, smashing tanks to pieces with a single swipe of your claws. Even Tyranid armor isn't manufactured, it's grown as biocarapace. Your exoskeleton would be layered plates of chitin, calcium, and keratin, arranged in a way that disperses energy. Underneath lies a shock absorption matrix of spongy tissue that cushions impacts. The carapace can deflect small arms fire and even absorb glancing hits from heavy weapons. But here's the genius of Tyranid bioengineering: their armor is adaptive. Tyranid exoskeletons can thicken or thin in response to battlefield data. During the war against Hive Fleet Kraken, Imperial records noted Tyranid carapace developing resistance to lasgun energy wavelengths after mere days of exposure. In some cases, entire bioforms were redesigned mid-campaign to counter newly fielded Imperial weapons. This rapid adaptation makes Tyranid warfare terrifyingly effective. Strategies that work today might fail utterly tomorrow because the enemy has physically evolved to counter them. And this is true on a planetary scale. When a Tyranid hive fleet invades a planet, the first wave usually consists of smaller organisms, gaunts, gargoyles, and lictors sent to probe defenses. They gather data on atmospheric conditions, resistance levels, and biological samples. Behind them come larger bioforms, carnifexes, exocrines, tyrannofexes, hive tyrants. As resistance stiffens, the hive mind begins deploying specialized creatures. If defenders rely on bunkers, the Tyranids breed creatures capable of burrowing or generating bioplasma charges. If defenders fight in tight city streets, Tyranids deploy bioforms suited for close-quarters ambush. Meanwhile, in orbit, Tyranid bioships hang like monstrous predators. Unlike human or Eldar starships, a Tyranid bioship is a living creature, kilometers long, with bone plating, pulsing veins, and countless cilia wafting in the void. Its weapons are equally organic, pyroacid batteries that spew streams of corrosive bioplasma, massive spore launchers that rain down spore ships, mycetic spores, or even entire broods of warriors onto planetary surfaces. Tentacle arrays that pierce enemy hulls to siphon resources. Or drag ships into digestive maws. A Tyranid bioship digests asteroids, processes raw matter into biomass to sustain the swarm. Its interior is a labyrinth of muscular tunnels, chitinous chambers, and rivers of digestive fluids. And the ultimate goal of Tyranid warfare is always the same: consumption. Once a planet's defenses collapse, the Tyranids deploy Ripper swarms, small, voracious creatures that devour everything, converting biomass into nutrient slurry. That slurry is siphoned back into bioships, where it's broken down and used to grow new Tyranid organisms. Atmospheres are sucked away, oceans drained. Even minerals are extracted from planetary crusts. Nothing remains but dead rock. This is why Tyranid warfare is so terrifying. It's not just conquest, it's total ecological annihilation. Becrone Pictha was a gainer, with hears which gain powter, fine know. Becomp let's talk about religion and philosophy. Or rather, the complete lack thereof. If you wake up as a Tyranid, you'll discover very quickly that your new species has no gods, no myths, no art, and no soul. The Tyranids are perhaps the purest example in the galaxy of biological determinism. They don't believe in higher powers because they are the higher power, or more precisely, the hive mind is. Unlike chaos worshippers who devote themselves to the whims of capricious gods, Tyranids worship nothing. They have no rituals, no prayers, no spiritual beliefs. Every Tyranid exists to perform a function, and that function is dictated by the hive mind. This makes them uniquely terrifying, because every other faction in the galaxy, no matter how alien, operates on some level of ideology, culture, or belief. The Imperium worships the Emperor and believes in the divine right of mankind. Eldar cling to ancient traditions and psychic prophecies. Orcs live for battle but follow their own twisted sense of honor and fun. Tau push for their greater good. Even Necrons, for all their cold logic, have echoes of dynastic pride and ambition. Tyranids have none of that. To them, life is purely transactional: feed, reproduce, adapt, survive. There's no art, no culture, no memories preserved for sentimental value. Everything is only as important as its immediate utility to the hive mind. In that sense, the hive mind itself is the closest thing the Tyranids have to a god. It's a supreme intelligence, an omnipresent awareness that perceives the galaxy in ways no single being could comprehend. Yet it doesn't love its creations, it doesn't comfort them, it doesn't grant salvation. The hive mind is pure pragmatism. The Tyranids' philosophy, if it can even be called that, is consumption as existence. They exist to feed. Their only measure of success is how much biomass they absorb and how efficiently they convert it into more Tyranids. This makes Tyranids utterly alien to the moral frameworks of the galaxy. The Imperium sees them as monstrous abominations. Eldar view them as a cosmic plague. Even Chaos gods disdain them because the Tyranids are immune to their temptations. You can't corrupt a Tyranid with promises of power. It has no self to tempt. And the hive mind doesn't simply exist outside faith, it actively destroys it. There's an effect known as the shadow in the warp. When a hive fleet approaches a star system, the psychic presence of the hive mind blankets the region like a suffocating fog. Human astropaths lose their minds. Elder Farseers scream in psychic agony. Orc weirdboys combust under the pressure. The shadow in the warp is a psychic dead zone that severs communication, drowns out psychic signals, and snuffs out the psychic resonance that many species rely upon. For Psykers, this is pure hell. Their link to the warp becomes choked and distorted, filled with images of endless hunger, visions of teeth, claws, oceans of churning biomass. It's not just interference, it's the hive mind pressing against their consciousness. For religious faiths, the shadow in the warp is equally devastating. Imperial saints, Eldar spirit stones, Tau ethereal guidance, all are meaningless under the weight of the hive mind's psychic gravity. This is perhaps the Tyranids' cruelest philosophical truth. They erase meaning itself. They don't simply devour flesh and planets. They devour belief, hope, and the very notion that life has a purpose beyond consumption. And if you wake up as a Tyranid, that becomes your new reality. You wouldn't pray, you wouldn't hope, you wouldn't dream. You'd simply act according to the will of something impossibly vast. Your entire existence would be a biological transaction, measured in how efficiently you help the hive mind devour the next world. There's no solace in faith, no comfort in philosophy, only the ceaseless directive to consume, evolve, survive. Let's talk about the enemies and threats faced by the Tyranids, because even as the galaxy's ultimate predators, they are not invincible. If you wake up as a Tyranid, your instinct might be to believe that you're at the apex of the food chain. After all, you belong to a species that devours entire planets, reshapes ecosystems, and fields swarms numbering in the billions. But the truth is, the galaxy is a brutal place, and the Tyranids have enemies everywhere. The most obvious threat is the Imperium of Man. To humanity, the Tyranids are not just another Xenos menace, they are an existential threat. Unlike orcs, who can be fought and contained, or chaos, which can be resisted through faith and steel, the Tyranids represent a biological apocalypse. Every Imperial record describing Tyranid invasions reads like a horror story. Planets going silent, astropathic screams, skies blackened by bioships vomiting spores and creatures onto the surface. Imperial Guard regiments have watched entire formations disappear beneath endless waves of chitin and claws. Space Marines have seen fortresses fall after defenders ran out of ammunition or were physically buried beneath Tyranid corpses. And yet, the Imperium fights back. With the ferocity of a cornered animal, humanity has thrown entire sectors into sacrifice to buy time. They've scorched entire worlds clean through Exterminatus, denying biomass to the hive fleets. But Exterminatus is a costly tactic. Every burned world is a blow to the Imperium's own resources, and the hive fleets keep coming. Each engagement costs the Imperium billions of lives, ships, and irreplaceable relics. Then there's the Adeptus Astartes. Space Marines have become experts at countering Tyranid tactics. Chapters like the Ultramarines, Blood Angels, and Deathwatch have entire codex entries devoted to Tyranid bioforms. They deploy kill teams specialized in severing synapse creatures, knowing that once the synapse network collapses, Tyranid swarms descend into chaos. Yet even then, victory is Pyrrhic. For every successful counterattack, Tyranids learn and evolve. The same tactics rarely work twice. Beyond the Imperium, other threats loom. The Eldar recognize the Tyranids as a doom even greater than chaos. To the Eldar, the Tyranids are a cosmic force of consumption capable of erasing entire craft worlds. Eldar farseers have seen visions of an utterly barren galaxy, all stars shining over dead worlds stripped by the Great Devourer. The Eldar fight with precision and hit-and-run tactics, striking key nodes in Tyranid synapse networks. But they know that even a small mistake can lead to annihilation. Tyranid counter-adaptations come swiftly, and Eldar forces are far too small to sustain prolonged conflict. The Orcs have a unique relationship with the Tyranids. In some ways, they're natural enemies, each representing the purest form of instinct-driven survival. Orcs love a good fight, and few things offer as much fun as hacking through swarms of aliens with chainswords and choppers. Yet Orcs also provide the Tyranids with a vast supply of biomass. A massive WAAGH crashing into a Tyranid invasion might generate epic battles, But when the dust settles, the Tyranids often end up devouring the orc dead, growing stronger for the next round. Then there's the Necrons. The Necrons view the Tyranids with cold hatred, recognizing them as a direct threat to the galactic order. For the Necrons, the Tyranids are chaos incarnate, biological entropy seeking to reduce complex civilizations into nutrient sludge. Some Necron dynasties have begun deploying advanced weapons specifically to eradicate Tyranid bioforms. But the Necrons have their own problems. Many of their worlds have been slumbering for millions of years, and they awaken only to discover that the Tyranids have already arrived to strip mine their tomb worlds. Even the forces of chaos despise the Tyranids. On the surface, the Tyranids seem like perfect agents of destruction, yet the dark gods loathe them. Tyranids are immune to corruption. They feel no temptation. They don't pray. They cannot be bargained with. Their psychic presence actively drowns out the warp, creating dead zones that stifle demonic influence. A Tyranid fleet approaching a chaos-held system is like a storm rolling across a bonfire. It snuffs out the warp and devours the living, leaving nothing for the dark gods to claim. Yet even chaos has fought back. During some campaigns, chaos warbands have engaged Tyranid swarms with monstrous demonic forces, creating battles of truly apocalyptic scale. But perhaps the greatest threat to the Tyranids comes from within: resources. A hive fleet requires an astronomical amount of biomass to sustain itself. Even in victory, Tyranids can run low on nutrients. Every battle costs resources: genetic material, bioplasm, raw tissue. A fleet that overextends without consuming enough worlds risks starvation. There have been recorded cases where Imperial defenders successfully implemented scorched earth tactics, leaving planets worthless as food. Hive fleets have been forced to withdraw or fragment into smaller splinters to survive. This internal threat is unique to Tyranids. Their very nature as living organisms means they must constantly feed. A Tyranid fleet that cannot feed eventually consumes itself, dissolving bioforms into nutrient sludge to keep the hive mind's core functions alive. So if you wake up as a Tyranid, remember, you're not just fighting the enemies outside, you're fighting the clock. Because if there's no biomass left, you're next on the menu. Watch book and Denace Puck and Nespression fighting school. But perhaps the cruelest fate of all is the boredom and exhaustion that comes with being a Tyranid. It might sound absurd to describe a creature bred for endless warfare as bored, but that's precisely what makes the Tyranid condition so nightmarish. Because for all their evolutionary brilliance, Tyranids live in a universe of monotony. Imagine existing in a state where every moment of your life is devoted to either hunting, fighting, or feeding. You don't get to rest, you don't dream, you don't reflect, you don't experience joy or curiosity. Every thought you have is simply a chemical directive: CA advance, advance, CA attack, far, kill, far, consume. Repeat. For the smaller Tyranid bioforms, this is simply existence. Gaunts don't question why they charge enemy lines. They don't wonder if there's a better way. They're biological machines operating on instinct. But for synapse creatures, Tyranid warriors, hive tyrants, it's different. These beings carry a larger fragment of the hive mind's awareness. They perceive tactics, make split-second battlefield decisions, analyze enemy weaknesses. Yet even this higher consciousness is not true freedom. It's simply a more complex expression of the same fundamental purpose. A hive tyrant might possess strategic genius capable of anticipating an enemy's moves 5 steps ahead. But it's still a prisoner. It cannot want anything other than victory. It cannot desire rest or peace. And when the battles stop, when the swarm has consumed a world and there's nothing left to kill, that's when the hunger sets in. Because the hive mind never sleeps, it never relaxes, it never finds contentment. There's always another planet, another system, another biomass source to devour. And so the swarm reforms, reorganizes, and points itself at the next star on the galactic map. Even the Tyranid fleets themselves reflect this grim cycle. A hive fleet is in constant motion, searching for resources. There's no concept of home. No safe harbor. Bioships drift through space like silent predators, crewed by living weapons that never speak, never laugh, never sing. The boredom is existential, because to be a Tyranid is to exist in a perfect prison, a prison without walls, but with iron biological purpose. You are driven by hunger you can never satisfy, propelled forward by a mind so vast that your own identity vanishes like dust in a hurricane. And so, even amidst endless warfare, the Tyranids live in a kind of cosmic tedium. There's no novelty, no surprise. Every planet is just biomass. Every battle is merely another experiment. Every organism exists only as a stepping stone toward greater consumption. And even if you survive 1,000 battles, even if you prove yourself a perfect instrument of the hive mind, your fate is the same as all the others. One day, the hive mind may simply decide you're obsolete, and your flesh will be broken down into nutrient soup, your genetic data filed away for future bioforms. Because in the end, for the Tyranids, nothing truly matters except feeding the swarm. So if you wake up as a Tyranid, know this: your life will be an endless loop of hunger, violence, and obedience. And the worst part is, you won't even care enough to hate it. It. Because how can there be famous Tyranids when they have no individuality? When every creature is just a cell in the hive mind? The answer is that some Tyranid bioforms have achieved such terrifying efficiency or impact that Imperial records and other factions have given them names. They are not individuals in the human sense. They are manifestations of the hive mind's focused intent, particular biological weapons refined to perfection, deployed repeatedly across centuries of galactic warfare. First and foremost among these is the Swarm Lord. If the hive mind can be said to have an avatar, the Swarm Lord is it. The Swarm Lord is a massive hive tyrant bioform towering over most battlefield creatures. It's physically immense, with thick layers of biochitin that shimmer in dark purples and blues. 4 massive bone swords extend from its limbs, each crackling with a psychic field capable of slicing through ceramite and force fields alike. But what makes the Swarmlord unique isn't merely its size or armament, it's the intelligence it carries. The Swarmlord isn't just another synapse creature. It's a unique node that carries a far larger share of the hive mind's strategic consciousness. When the Swarmlord is on the battlefield, it thinks, it learns, it remembers, and it applies those memories in subsequent campaigns. Imperial records speak of battles where the Swarmlord anticipated enemy maneuvers with frightening precision, countering Space Marine deployments before the orders were even issued. It adapts tactics in real time, and it's not confined to one physical body. If the Swarmlord is slain, the hive mind can simply regrow it elsewhere, its tactical genius intact. In many ways, the Swarmlord is the hive mind's ultimate expression of its intent to win at any cost. Emissions at any cost. Old One Eye is a Carnifex, but not just any Carnifex. This monstrous beast first appeared during Hive Fleet Behemoth's invasion of the planet Calth. Old One Eye was seemingly killed in battle, entombed beneath tons of ice and rubble. But decades later, seismic disturbances revealed that it had survived, regenerating its wounds and clawing its way back to the surface. It's called Old One Eye because of the deep scarring across the left side of its skull, leaving one massive biolens shattered and milky. Despite this injury, Old One Eye retains unparalleled regenerative capabilities. Imperial forces have killed Old One Eye multiple times. Each time, it eventually returns, reborn through the hive mind's genetic archives. Its rampages across Imperial worlds have become infamous, leaving trails of shattered tanks and shredded infantry in its wake. It has become almost the boogeyman figure in Imperial propaganda. Proof that no matter how often you kill a Tyranid, it might simply rise again. Carrots was a roll prom. I could have it the spleed. But unlike typical lictors, Deathleaper has become a legend in its own right. During the war on the ecclesiarchy world of St. Cian, Casparlan, Deathleaper, infiltrated the planetary capital, moving unseen through layers of Imperial defenses. It assassinated key officials, destroyed Vox arrays, and left high-ranking clergy hanging from cathedral spires as macabre warnings. The psychological damage was devastating. The planet's entire defense grid collapsed because commanders were paralyzed with fear, knowing that Deathleaper could strike anywhere, anytime. Unlike many Tyranids, Deathleaper seems to exhibit a level of cunning and sadistic creativity unusual even among lictors. It appears multiple times in Imperial records across different battle zones, suggesting that the Hive Mind might preserve particularly effective predator patterns for redeployment. To Imperial forces, Deathleaper isn't just a monster, it's a spectre of perfect assassination. A tall, and the Copments, not before the Saman, Stick, Tets, and finally, though not an individual creature, there are the Hive fleets themselves, each of which has become legendary. Hive Fleet Behemoth was the first true assault wave, crashing into the galaxy like a tidal wave. It nearly broke the Ultramarines at Macragge. Hive Fleet Kraken operated with terrifying speed and precision, splitting into countless tendrils to attack multiple targets simultaneously. Hive Fleet Leviathan came from beneath the galactic plane, striking from unexpected vectors and nearly overwhelming the Imperium from two directions at once. Hive Fleet Gorgon became infamous for its hyper-rapid adaptability, evolving counter-strategies within days of encountering new enemies. A Hive Fleet Hydra specializes in regenerating losses, reforming after apparent annihilation. Each Hive Fleet represents a unique evolutionary approach to conquest and consumption, as though the Hive Mind were conducting galaxy-scale experiments to determine the optimal path to devour the stars. So while Tyranids have no heroes, no legends, and no champions in the traditional sense, their most effective creations become infamous simply because they leave such a horrific mark on the galaxy. Pursts were the true Maid by Sit, Maid by Sens. My jest entire. Because the day-to-day existence of a Tyranid is not life as any human would define it. If you wake up as a Tyranid, your routine depends entirely on your bioform. Let's break it down. If you're a Gaunt, whether Hormagaunt, Termagant, or Spinegaunt, your daily existence is pure simplicity. Or await synapse instructions. Await synapse instructions. Move where directed. Feed. Repeat. You might spend hours clustered in a swarm, motionless, until the synapse signal changes and you're suddenly racing forward to tear apart anything in your path. There's no boredom in the human sense because you lack the cognitive complexity to experience it. You're effectively a biological automaton running on instinct and synapse control. Behived is wive, age told, of rest in the pricking. If you're a Tyranid warrior, things become more complex. Your mind holds a fragment of the Hive Mind's awareness. You perceive tactics, coordinate broods, and can operate semi-independently if cut off from higher synapse nodes. Your daily existence includes 1.